Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio, and today I'm going to be looking at 20 Strong Cloudspire, the newest reiteration of one of their IPs into the 20 Strong dice system from publisher Chip Theory Games. The 20 Strong system has been out for a number of years, and in addition to some original IPs, they've been incorporating pre-existing IPs from their own company into the system. Things like Too Many Bones and Hoplomachus have had the 20 Strong kind of treatment, and now we have Cloudspire. And it definitely takes some inspiration from the game it's based upon, namely the idea of it being a tower defense game where you are going to be placing spires out, which are going to be attacking enemies that are coming towards your hero. Let's head over to the table. I'll let you know how it works. Then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. To set up 20 Strong Cloudspire, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose a hero from one of the different factions. So in this example, we're going to be looking at Eitri, from the Greege faction. And then you're going to also pick a couple of allied factions that are going to be allied with you, and you will not have any enemies from those two factions that are allied with you. The other thing that you're going to do is you're going to find the two spires. I'll bring this back up here actually. The two spires that are underneath the name of your hero. In that case, we're looking at these two hive spires that are right here. Okay? Then you go ahead and you can place these anywhere you want. So these spires are going to go on either side of this deployment line. So you're going to have basically 3 rows, and you're going to have a couple of, actually 3 columns too, 2 of them containing your spires and 1 containing the enemies that are going to come marching down towards you. So maybe I'd put one of my hive spires there, and I'd put one of my hive spires over here. I would draw the top 2 cards from this deck here. And then these are actually both spires. They show you right here. They're both spires. I can choose to, at the beginning of the strategy phase, which you'll see here in a second, I can actually put those out. So one of the nice things is that you have the round flow here. This is the one that is specific to Cloudspire, and there are going to be some adjustments within these phases, but these phases are based upon the general 20 Strong system, okay? One thing that's unique to this particular version of 20 Strong is a cycle enemies phase. So what I could do if I wanted at the very beginning of activation is I could cycle the top card of this deck to the bottom by exhausting any die in my pool. All right. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to be choosing a boss, okay? And this is going to be, in this case, from the Keel faction. The other side is the hero. So you're either choosing a hero or a boss, depending upon how you're going to do it. And so that Keel faction is an enemy, and there are 2 other factions that have kind of mini bosses that are in here. I can actually tell you what the different factions, the Uprising and the Grove Tenders, are the other 2 factions along with the Keel that are going to be my enemies in this particular game, just the way it was set up. Okay, so I'm not going to go into how the 20 Strong system works. There are other reviews on this channel that talk about that more. I can link to one of those in the description of this video. I'm just going to really talk the basics about how Cloudspire works. And so, as I mentioned at the very beginning, you could cycle enemies if you wanted to. The next thing you do is advanced enemies. And if there were any enemies that were already in this row, they would move down. If all 3 were filled and you could not add another enemy, your hero would take a damage. And so right now this hero starts with a health of 4. It has a strategy of 2 and a recovery of 1. It also has one of these spots, which are known as a blueprint, and that is something that is unique to Cloudspire. None of the other 20 Strong games have these blueprints. This one specifically tells you a green die has to go there, whereas these hive spires show that they're wild. You can put any there. The next thing that you can do is place spires, and so I have 2 in my inventory, and I can only have a maximum of 2 items in my inventory at the time that I start because they have a 2 strategy. I could place these anywhere I wanted in these spots. So maybe I would put this lance launcher there, and maybe I'd put this water tower here. I could also choose to hold off on putting them until later, but why not? The next thing you're going to do is part of the 20 strong system where you're committing dice, rolling dice, things along those lines. Actually, this militia defender should have gone right there before I even did that. If this had any things that would occur at the beginning, you would do those, but this is only a special that would be after the Spires fire phase. Also, one thing I did want to point out is that this particular boss said that during the beginning of the game, you would set the chip to 8, and before each suffer damage step, you can reduce your health to reduce the chip amount by the same amount. And during its activation, which would only take place after you've gone through every card in this deck, then you would activate the boss, you would reduce your health by the amount of the chip's value. So you'd want to get this value down from 8, ideally to 0, but at least down quite a bit so that when the hero activated, you're not taking a bunch of damage. All right, so let's say you're going to commit some dice. This has a health of 1. Actually, what I might want to do is switch these around, because what this water tower says is that enemies adjacent to this spire have -1 health to a minimum of 1. So that's really nice, because adjacency is going to be here. Okay, so these 2 spires are adjacent to this. These 2 spires are adjacent to each other. All right, and so right now this militia defender, instead of a health of 4, has a health of 3, and that would be something that I would think about. Also, my particular hero here has Queen's Blood ability, which means in the Spire's fire phase, this hero is considered to be adjacent to all active enemies. That's not usually the case. So I can lock at the beginning 1 green die onto here, and even though my hero's down here, it's considered adjacent to that enemy, and I could apply this die towards them too. So maybe I'm going to think about that. I'm going to take a green because I might want to put one there. I'll put a blue and a yellow that I can maybe lock onto those. And maybe I want to get a little bit more assurance, even though it's only a 3 health. Maybe I will pop a purple on there too, because that can go there. Go ahead and roll my dice. That's a pretty darn good roll. Look at all those crits. All right, so maybe I would put this one here. I would put this one here. I would put these here. Okay, so that is the rolling dice and applying dice. And then it's Spire's fire phase. Okay, this is where you're going to be trying to attack those enemies that are coming out. All right, so I only need to do 3. I have each of those crits are worth 2. And this one is just worth the 1, so I wouldn't want to waste one. Maybe what I would do, because the yellow crit is very rare to roll, I would go ahead and I would apply that die there and this die here, doing the 3 that's needed. And what it says is, after the Spire's fire phase in which you defeated this enemy, if it's not the only enemy defeated, exhaust all dice applied to this enemy and undefeated. Well, luckily, this one was the only enemy defeated, so that wouldn't happen. And I would get this boon, which is an immediate of 2 power, or 2 health, or recover 3 dice. That actually would trigger at the very, during the resolve phase, okay? So that's the general idea. If dice are not applied, they will stay unless you choose to exhaust them, unless the card says otherwise. And you're going to continue. If this one had not been defeated, it would march down, and then it would march down, and eventually be going after my hero. And you have to get through this entire deck, and then be able to defeat the boss to be successful. If your health ever goes down to 0, then you have lost. That's a high-level overview of the game. If you want to know more, again, you can look at the review I'll link on here so you can get a little more idea of the 20-strong system. But that should give you enough of an idea on how Cloudspire works within this system. Let's head back up and I'll let you know what I think. All right, so there you see Cloudspire given the 20-strong treatment. And the first thing I'll just talk about is the production. It is like almost all chip theory games, a very, very impressive production. They're usually known for these big, grandiose games that have a bunch of neoprene and poker chips and PVC cards. And this is a much more scaled down game system. That's, I think, one of the reasons why Chip Theory kind of put this out, is that it's something that you can get into some of the intellectual properties that they've created on a much cheaper price point. But even within that, it's a great production. You still have the PVC cards, the dice are of good quality, and although it's only one, you do get a poker chip, which is nice. But you know, the cards are really, really beautiful to look at. They pop on the table. They still are that PVC material, which some people don't like, but I really do like. It makes shuffling a breeze, and you don't have to worry about shuffling it very much. Just a really, really nice production for a game with a pretty reasonable price point, all things considered. So let's get into the gameplay. As I've mentioned a couple of times, Chip Theory Games have put out previous games in this 20-strong line based upon pre-existing games that they have come out with. I have reviewed some of them on the channel. They've already done Too Many Bones, and they've done Hoplomachus. They've done some original things too, but this is coming back to a re-implementation in a way of one of their previous games, Cloudspire. I found the base game of Cloudspire to be one that was very impressive. I did like the game, but I found it to be one of the more complex games in their line. Had a ton of keywords and some kind of movement systems that I felt to be a little bit tough to wrap your head around. Kind of pre-programmed movement that, you know, sometimes would have some gray areas and things that were not terribly intuitive. So it was actually a nice surprise for me to find that the 20-strong version of Cloudspire is one, I think, of the simpler games in this line. And maybe it's because it utilizes the tower defense system that Cloudspire has, while removing all of the kind of movement aspects. Really what you've got here is enemies that are going in a straight line right down a deployment line to your hero, and you've got spires and on either end. And I think that just makes for a very clean system, one that doesn't really have a tremendous amount of kind of gray area. Now, certainly within the cards, you've got keywords and timing elements, but that's always been a part of the 20-strong system. And I think as they have been continuing to design games in this line, they've gotten better and better about kind of delineating when these different effects happen. And so I found that it was pretty straightforward in this particular line. And I think that's great, because 20 strong as a system is not that hard to understand. They've done a good job of having very clearly delineated, you know, phases, but there is kind of a lot to track, you know, and depending upon which game you're playing in this line, there might be more things going on that kind of change, iterate, maybe kind of play around with how the game system works. Whereas Cloudspire, there's not a whole lot of that. You know, you pretty much are doing the standard phases. They have a couple of things that are unique. You know, these whole idea of blueprints, that doesn't exist in any of the other 20-strong games. And it's a neat little system, and it does play in well to this tower defense dice game. But overall, it is one of the cleaner implementations of the 20-strong system, I feel, out there. And for that, I think it's really a nice addition to this line, because when I'm recommending this game system to people, what I've typically said is, hey, go with the original one they came out with, the Solar Sentinels. It was kind of like the launch of this line came with this and a couple of their other IPs, and I was like, you know, that's the most basic system, but it's not necessarily the best, right? I thought it was a little bit too vanilla. Whereas now I can include Cloudspire in there. I think that, you know, if your first introduction to the 20-strong system is through Cloudspire, that's going to be great. And it is, I think, a much better game than the Solar Sentinels one is, and it stands up there with some of the best of the 20 Strong line. I'm going to be giving 20 Strong Cloudspire an 8.5 out of 10. I think it is outstanding. It's one of the best implementations of this game system, while still being relatively approachable for new players, and I think that that's a nice little sweet spot. So if you come into 20 Strong through this game and you like it, there are certainly going to be other games that are going to maybe be a little bit more complex, a little bit more going on, but this, while being a little bit simpler to understand, still has a lot of really clever play, some really nice thinky decisions while not getting caught up in too many edge cases or gray areas. So there you go. That is 20 Strong Cloudspire, an excellent, excellent iteration of this 20 Strong dice system. That's going to do it for me and Mike DiLisio. I will see you on the next one.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.